Okay, so this is not the only Bruins video we have made actually in the past week or two. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update as to the last time we had talked about Boston, because in the previous video, we had gone over how, in my very subtle and satirical opinion, the Boston Bruins had some con artists on their hands. And it was interesting because part of the reason I was even upset at the Bees was because my guy, Jeremy Swayman, had been losing me the week in fantasy. Well, he redeemed himself yesterday, playing off against the Seattle Kraken. And when you think about the context of that game, firstly, yes, we're talking about the fact that David Pastrnak was benched in that game and what happened. But before we dive into that, I wanted to go over just how weird the whole situation is for Boston and Seattle. The reason I say that is because on Saturday, February 11th, the Boston Bruins won a 3-0 shutout victory against the Philadelphia Flyers. It was Joonas Korpisalo getting the dub, so good on him for stepping in and getting the job done. And then, one day later, you had yourselves the Bees play off against the Seattle Kraken, also won with a shutout. Jeremy Swayman had it towards the end there. There were a lot of frantic chances the Kraken were trying to break that 2-0 lead, and they weren't able to. So it's funny because Boston had a shutout on Saturday and a shutout on Sunday. 2 wins. But if you go over to Seattle, their thing gets very interesting because not only did they get shut out themselves on Sunday against the Boston Bruins, but they also got shut out themselves too on Saturday against the Ottawa Senators. What the hell? Both Boston and Seattle suffered or won shutout games on Saturday and Sunday, with the second game being against each other. Seattle shut out on Saturday and Sunday, Boston shut out victories on Saturday and Sunday. Very, very strange, very, very coincidental, but we're not actually talking about the shutouts in this game, even though it is noteworthy for Jeremy Swayman because he ended up actually tying my week in fantasy with that shutout victory for him, so thank you, Swayman, for being the good goaltender that you can be. Please continue for the rest of the year. Anyways, I was so invested in this game because I was even watching it on my own television screen. You know how many Boston Bruins, Seattle Kraken games I've willingly decided to watch this season, or any season? This might have been the first one, realistically, and part of the fun about watching a fantasy hockey matchup for you and trying to root for the goaltender that has the 2-0 lead to maintain it is the scoring chances for the opposing team. You see, Seattle in this game didn't have many shots in the first half of the game, and towards the end of the first period, I think they only had 3. It was not good for Seattle. They looked totally gassed out from that loss yesterday, or 2 nights ago, excuse me. But towards the end, the Kraken were really starting to put the pressure on. Jeremy Swayman had to make some really big saves. There were a few shots that went off of posts and off of guys in front, and just very frantic opportunities that were there for Seattle, but they just could not bury the biscuit. However, for the Boston Bruins, they had themselves a very specific set of guys going out there trying to kill off the empty net and kill off the period. You had Elias Lindholm out there, you had Nikita Zadorov out there, you had Charlie Coyle winning faceoffs, and a bunch of other guys. But the very interesting part about yesterday's game is that one David Pastrnak was not actually played at all in the third period. Go over to his stat line and you'll see that David Pastrnak had 14 minutes of time on ice in game in this one, which is a pretty steep decline from the frequent 20, 21, 22-minute fragments that he would usually get in prior games. If you map it out, okay, he plays roughly 7 minutes a period, 7, 14, 21, that kind of works out with the prior games. But in this game, he only had 14. So he had the first and the second, and then he was benched. This is where we go over into what happened and why the Boston Bruins ended up benching one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. Jim Montgomery spoke out about the situation here. It was the coach's decision in the third period. That's all I'm going to comment on it. And that's interesting. Very interesting. Because if you're looking at this from the outside, any neutral observer who hasn't really been keeping up to date will be like, oh, what the hell? What did Pastrnak do to deserve a benching? The guy's so expensive, the guy's a top goal scorer. This guy, of all people, is in that spot. Well, when you think about it, David Pastrnak this season technically is not one of the top producers in the league. He's on pace for about 70 points this year, which would be a decline from the previous two 110-plus point seasons he had posted up back-to-back in the prior 2 years. Not to mention 60 goals, 47 goals. He's on pace this season for 38 goals, so definitely a decline. Now, the Boston Bruins in general have sort of declined performance-wise from last year to this year, so maybe that's also part of it too, but I wanted to go over some Boston Bruin fan reactions as to the benching, like this one from Bruins Network. I'll be honest, I have no issues with Montgomery benching Pastrnak to send a message if that's what happened. Pasta has been scoring and creating opportunities, but he's also been abnormally careless with the puck and not playing very responsibly. Accountability is for everyone. Then we had ourselves this other tweet posted and updated there by Joe Haggerty. He, of course, does stuff with Boston Sports at BSJ. Anyone that wants to know why Pastrnak was benched for the third period should probably go back and watch his final shift of the second period. Really careless turnover and a bad change that could have easily led to a Seattle goal right before the second intermission. And that was indeed posted onto Twitter over here by Brian DeFelice. For those curious as to what moment specifically led to Jim Montgomery benching Pastrnak in the third, notice the situation, the score, the time on the clock, and the momentum that would have gone the other way due to a careless, trying to do it all yourself turnover. This is the play in question. 51 seconds to go in the second period. The Bruins have a 2-0 lead. The Kraken only have 7 shots, and David Pastrnak picks up the puck in the neutral zone, approaching 4 Seattle Kraken dudes. He ends up trying to dipsy-do his way by everybody, which leads to a pretty big turnover and a shorthanded rush. Again, with seconds remaining in the second period, the guy comes in, there are 3 Bruins collapsing on him, and it led to Seattle possession. They took control at their own zone. Pasta went off for a line change, which is kind of a no-no here because the Kraken made a big outlet pass and it led to a big 2-on-1 chance. Again, with seconds to go, Yanni Gourde coming in on goal. He decides to take the shot. The rebound is there and Jeremy Swayman stops it up. No goal here on this big scramble off of a turnover caused by Pastrnak, and a 2-on-1 rush, you could say, also was caused by Pastrnak leaving the ice a little bit too late there. So, the Bruins had ample reason to go out there and bench one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. It's kind of unfortunate, but hey, standards have to be applied here, right? So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Boston Bruins benching David Pastrnak and what this also says about him and his holistic play in 2024-2025. People have been quick to point out that he is in a tough spot considering the lack of production compared to prior years and the sort of carelessness that he has had with the puck this season. My question to you is, at what point do you start worrying, and is there even a capacity for you to feel worried? It's not like David Pastrnak isn't talented. He's still setting things up and he's still getting some points. It's just the magnitude as to how he's been doing that is significantly reduced from last year, and there are a lot more warts in his game as a result. Or maybe not even as a result, just kind of coincidentally there happen to be more warts in his game this year. So let me know your thoughts about the Boston Bruins and their shutout victory against Seattle yesterday. What are your thoughts on David Pastrnak and his situation? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.